What's up, my dude? Ski TKO Smokey, the big dog, with the rejoin on the memberships of the channel. I appreciate you, dude. You've also donated like $10,000 to me in my live streams. Not literally, but basically, that's what it feels like. So, TKO Smokey, big dog in the MX Bikes community. I appreciate all the support, buddy. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to get back to shouting out all of the memberships for the channel. If you don't know about that, all you got to do is hit the join button on my front page. You can see all the perks that you can get with that, and that's part of it. You do get a shout out in the live stream and in a video, so I'll have to catch up on all those. I know I've got a bunch of new members and some members that have rejoined right now that I started live streaming again, so we'll get back to everything on that. Just give me a little bit of time, you know what I'm saying? Either way, we gotta say track review here on Supercoop MX. This is made by Hurren MX. Okay, so this track right here, this just something about it brought back so many memories of real life riding, you know, when you'll hop on those local vibe, you know, tracks in real life and you're out there on a practice day and it's just you and the track and you know, not very many people's out there. I don't know. There was some little vibe it gave me with that on this track right here. So that was a pretty cool thing. This is definitely all of your local amateur track vibes going on. This isn't even what I would call like a quote-unquote amateur track. This is more of a local, you know, local motocross track vibe right here, which is kind of different than like a, you know, a Mini-O's vibe or a Loretta Lynn's vibe or whatever. This is definitely more of a local motocross vibe, and that's cool because I feel like that's where we all kind of started riding real-life motocross and racing real-life motocross, was this kind of, you know, simple local track design. So it can give you some pretty cool memories and shit. But yeah, this track is pretty fun. I mean, this is what you talk when I talk about pre-made micro pre-made ruts. This is the definition of that. That's exactly what this track is micro pre-made ruts. And I just think this is such a needed element in MX bikes. There's been so many custom tracks made in this game over the years that just did not have enough pre-made ruts and roughness. They were just too smoothed out, you know. This kind of style in the Netherlands GP track, and they're finally starting to get more of that pre-made design going to these tracks, and it's changing the entire dynamic of MX bikes. It's taking it to a whole nother level. And another thing I really love about this track is it's actually open enough. That's what this track feels different than that Netherlands JV track, right? In the sense of, I feel like you can go a lot faster on this track, even though it's got similar, like, you know, micro braking bumps and micro ruts everywhere. It's just more open scaling. You know, this track's got a little bit bigger of a scaling to it where you can actually get on the gas on a 450 and, you know, open that sumbitch up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You can open up that T-valve a little bit. I think this is very needed on not only motocross tracks, but also supercross tracks in this game. You know, having that little bit more expanded scaling to give you, you know, a little bit more expanded width, a little bit more expanded length of the lanes where you can actually hold on that throttle. You know, it makes such a big difference in how much more speed you can carry into a corner and how much more, you know, you can test out the physics of the bike because you can actually get up there to that faster speed, right? This game does have a little bit of a slower speed feeling, I've noticed, than MX Simulator. It doesn't have as much of a jolt of power when you go wide open on a 450 in this game, you know? If you're just sitting there and then you just rip that thing wide open in third, fourth gear, it doesn't have as much of a jolt feeling, you know, as much of a, like, power band, you know, it just, for whatever reason, doesn't have that. So it takes a lot, I feel like it takes a little more expanded scaling of tracks to really get up there in that kind of speed range. And I really did love that about this track. These outside, very far outside ruts are so much fun, trying to snag and really carry that momentum and carry that speed around. They're not super big, you know, they still have that local vibe feeling to it as far as the Premade. You know, this is not like a GP level Premade. It's not like a pro level Premade, national track or whatever, as far as the rut sizes. Which makes it really cool and different and unique in that sense, because it's just got a little bit of a different vibe to it. Got a really cool like mud little wet section on the track, which is fucking awesome. It's actually got water within the individual little Premade ruts, exactly like the kind of shit you would see on a local vibe track where they've got certain areas that are a little bit lower and hold water, or they got areas where, you know, the water truck gets the water and that's going to be a little bit slicker, wetter area of the track. This track brought back so many memories, dude, of local track racing and practicing and stuff like that I've done in real life. It was really cool getting those kind of vibes again. But yeah, not a whole lot of big jumps on this track. There's enough here to keep you engaged. You know, you can definitely over jump some of these tabletops and kind of carry more speed that way. But, you know, it's definitely that local vibe track jump, you know, sizes and shit like that. But yeah, there is still a ton of replayability to this track. There's skill gap to this track. It's not boring. You know, I think there's a lot of MX bikes tracks out there that at the end of the day, they just end up being too boring for whatever reason. Like there's either not enough Premade, or the scaling is too tight, or the berms aren't big enough, or, you know, it seems like there's something to a lot of MX bikes tracks that kind of restricts them from really having that fun factor and replayability. But Hurren MX really, he got it together here on this track, and feels like you can always hit a different rut in every corner. The jump faces themselves kind of have ruts going up them and down the landing, so it gives you that hyper-realistic change of terrain everywhere on the track, which is just, it's a different kind of riding in MX bikes or MX Simulator, either one of them. This has been one of my biggest gripes with, you know, with RF making the track so smooth on MX Simulator. They basically went backwards in that sense, trying to make their tracks around a road, because once you start taking away that Premade, once you start taking away that micro Premade, it just changes the whole dynamic of the entire thing, no matter how good the terrain deformation is, which it's not on MX Simulator because there's no cushion to it, but there's just no replacement for displacement. Sorry, I had to say it. What I meant to say was there's no replacement for Premade. You see what I'm saying? In MX bikes is proving that 1,000%. Like if the JV, you know, replica MXGP tracks didn't have all that Premade like they have, they wouldn't be considered what they are. And MX Simulator with the new RF tracks, they're literally going the opposite direction of Premade. They're taking it away. They're making it more smooth. They're smoothing everything out. It's fucking boring riding on those tracks. But like here, you know, with these JV tracks and some of these Hurren tracks are starting to get that Premade down, and it's making it so much more fun in this game, man. It's just, it's a different kind of fun, you know? Premade gives you a whole different kind of fun. And the best part about MX bikes is you can have this kind of Premade with the deformation turned on and it having that little bit of cushion to the dirt feeling. It mix and matches with that Premade so much better than it does on MX Simulator. You know, it's very difficult to have all of this micro Premade on a track on MX Sim and then have the erode turned on top of that. It becomes a jank fest and a half really quick, you know. It doesn't do that on MX bikes because it's got a little bit of that cushiony feeling to the dirt. You know, the deformation itself is not so fucking sturdy. You know, it's not so hardcore terrain So it gives you a little bit of that where you can, and that's a cool thing about this track. You know, like I was saying, some of the outside ruts slash berms are pretty small, so it can be kind of hard to really carry that speed around. But once you start getting that deformation worked in on some of those outside ruts and you dig it down a little bit more, it gives you a little bit more to bank off of. You can actually go quite a bit faster on this track once that deformation starts building those ruts up. It just makes the track better, in my opinion. When the deformation starts to hit on it, even with all that pre-made. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, this is a definition of micro pre-made right here, big dogs. The lanes are pretty open. Track's got a nice width to it, so you feel like there's like 7 ruts to hit in every corner, even though that may not literally be the case. It feels that way. I know there's one corner that does have like 7 ruts in it after the mud section. But yeah, there's enough to keep you engaged here. Even though the jumps are not massive, they're big enough for a local vibe style track like this. You know what I mean? So yeah, this was just a fun little track right here. Premade just makes it to where it's just, there's so much more to keep you, like I'm saying, keep you engaged and keep you interested in the track when you have all that pre-made on the first lap. You know, it's like, ooh, what kind of rut am I going to try to hit? Ooh, there's this, little pre-made roughness in this one area, so maybe I need to try to hit a different spot, or like, it really opens up those different kind of line opportunities versus when you just start with a perfectly smooth track with basically no pre-made and you're trying to rely on the deformation to do everything. It's just not quite as fun, is it? Has Spency Boy been right about that this whole time? Oh man, it's just not quite as fun, is it? Going in there on a glass flat, damn near no pre-made smooth track. New RF MX simulator tracks, basically all RF national tracks from 2018 to now have basically in a nutshell been that way. They just don't have enough pre-made to keep it interesting enough on the first 5 laps of riding on the track. First impressions are so important on custom tracks or any kind of track, so if you don't have enough of that pre-made, it's not as fun, man. That's really all there is to it. It's not as fun. And that's what makes this track so replayable and fun like that, is because of the pre-made. If you just ripped all that away and you had this idea that the deformation was going to make all this for you, I can tell you right now, it's not really going to do that. Even if you had the greatest deformation ever, I just don't think it's going to make quite like what pre-made makes. You just can't replace it, man. It's unbelievable what actual micro pre-made, properly built micro pre-made will do for a certain track. So yeah, boys, either way, this is a fun carry in the speed kind of track. It'll really teach you how to keep that momentum going through the roughness, through the ruts and the corners. Got a lot of good learning lesson type shit to be had on this track if you're more of a amateur speed kind of rider like I am in the game right now. It's that nice little skill gap in between, but, still open enough to really get on the gas and test out the bikes in the game. It's got a nice little vibe like that. The off track, for a local track vibe, it's pretty good. There ain't really anything too negative to say. Yeah, some of the off track can look a little bare, a little repetitive, but for the most part, you can't really complain too much about it because it's trying to be that basic local vibe style of a track, So it kind of having the off track and the objects more basic like that kind of just plays into that local practice day on a local vibe sort of track. You know what I mean? It just kind of plays all into that. So, but yeah, this is what you call character. That thing that the newer RF tracks are totally missing. This is what you call character to a track. You remember each one of these areas on the track and each one of these sections you remember this, like, at least I do anyways, I remember this vivid picture of like, oh yeah, that one spot where there's that bigger inside berm that's got like 2 ruts in the berm. Yeah, I remember that one spot where it's got that raised up area on the inside, or that rough spot, or that one corner where it's got that little mud section with the ruts, or, you know, there's so many memorable areas on this track in comparison to a track that doesn't have this kind of pre-made on it, you know? You just seem to remember these areas and these sections so much more because they're all unique in a certain kind of way, where that one rut cuts through another rut or whatever. It's really cool in that kind of sense. But yeah, overall, I'm going to give this thing like a fucking 9. A 9 or 10 overall. Fuck, I don't know. It's way up there, dog. This one's a lot of fun right here. And it may not seem like that at a first glance because you see it and it looks like a little basic little, you know, kind of a bland dirt color. And, you know, don't judge this book by its cover. Let's just say that. You really need to get on this track and actually ride on it a little bit, and it'll give you a whole different vibe when you start to do that on it. Yeah, dudes. We'll be back on that next one. Later.